Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This is just a watering session today, so if that doesn't interest you, at least you've been forewarned. I will be bringing pots over, watering them and then putting them back. That's what I do. For those actually interested, this is my cooler Shadier set that have just had 3 flushes consecutively, and each of those was between 10 and 12 days apart. This is the first feed they've had since then, if you work back, yeah, so they haven't had much at all. That is my new Orchid Focus Grow, and it's a TDS of 85. The pH is just under 6.7. That might sound high, but because of the media they're in and the amount of time this moisture is going to spend in the pot with organic media, that pH will drop down over the days so that the roots get access to the feed at varying pHs. That's how I work. Right, I thought if we start with the Miltoniopsis, there's 2 of them that I actually want to try and gently take out of the pot just to see what we've got in there. So we'll start with those. Now this is the Vexillaria that came from Burnham's. I can see at the top of the pot the start of roots growing. It does seem quite firm in the pot, so I would suggest it has got roots. So it can have some water. This looks like it's in bark, so this can be watered properly because it's been recently potted in new bark, and as a consequence that bark's going to dry quite quickly, so that can be watered thoroughly. That will probably be the only one. And that's purely because of what it's in. Right, that's that one. Now we'll bring over the 2. These are in bloom, these next 2. Now these 2 also came from Burnham's, but these came from the sales area, so these have been bought in from abroad. They're in some sort of cocoa fibre, and I want to try and gently, if I can, lift them out the pot and see what's going on. I'm not sure this is going to work. There we go. So we have got a reasonable root system. That's not bad at all. And it's slightly, very, very slightly damp. So that can have a trickle of water. This is just a hybrid, it won't have a name. Even if it has a name from where it came from, it's probably not a registered name, it's probably a trade name. So that can have a trickle around the edge, which is where most of the roots are, and that will make its way down. That may be the first feed it's had since it got into this country. May well be. So that's that one. Oh, lovely fragrance, only slight but very nice, and lovely blooms as well. And the next one again is in bloom. Although this one's not named, it is highly likely to be Her Alexander. Now let's see if we can tease this one out as well. It's in the same media, probably came from the same place. Yeah, it's got roots, but you notice the roots are only at the top of the pot. They don't necessarily go right down in. So this one hasn't got quite such a good root system. It's in the same media and it is very, very slightly damp. So again, it can have a little bit of water, a bit less than the last one, just around the top edge, and that will just sink down without getting the whole pot soaking wet. And again, fragrance on that one is strong. Smells like roses. Now a rose aficionado, or whatever you call them, you know, is going to say, well, they don't all smell the same, but for somebody who's not really into roses, well, they actually do. Right, so there's 2 more of these, and these are the 2 that arrived yesterday. And that moss is still slightly damp, but it can have a small trickle, and I mean a small one, that will wick. So I can see it wicking straight away, so that's all it's going to get. I'm not even going to do around the other side of the pot. You can see it running down, and that will gradually soak into the majority of that pot. That one's still wet, that's not going to get any. Made a mess, haven't I? Right, so those are they're going to have to stay there for a minute, because the next lot of plants I want to get out, those are in front of, so we can now get at the ones behind. And these are my Odontoglossum type Oncidiums. So these are the cooler, they fit into this cooler Shadier set. Now these are the ones that aren't in bloom, they're on the lower shelf. This one's lost its tag. This has got hardly any roots at all. It's a division, basically. So that's going to get next to nothing. So not a soaking at all, just a gentle wetting. And as it's relatively new bark, it hasn't been in there long, that will gradually migrate through the rest of the pot. And then this is the other part of tiger tail, so it has got a name. The other part's in bloom, so we'll be getting that one across in a minute. So this, again, it was two plants in a pot, and I decided they'd be better off in one pot. It does have some roots, but they're old and tired. It doesn't seem to be growing new ones yet. Nonetheless, it has got a spike that I've just noticed. I will make a decision when that spike's a bit bigger as to whether I'm going to keep it or not. If you're unsure if a plant's strong enough and healthy enough to bloom and it decides to put a spike up, you can either take the spike off if the plant's quite weak. They'll do that, even though it's a weak plant, they'll still try and bloom to perpetuate their selves. But if you're not confident it's strong enough to bloom for any excesses, what you can do is let the spike develop, and then before the buds open, cut it in half. Or you can let all the buds open and then take the spike off early. So don't leave it on there too long. That way you at least get to see the blooms and let the spike develop. We don't leave it on there too long and drain the resources. So that's that one. And then the next two are actually in bloom, so these can go straight back. This is the other bit of tiger tail, and as I said, this one is actually in bloom. This one has actually got some roots. It's not too bad, and on that latest growth it is starting to produce some more. So this has got some roots. So again, we'll just give it a dribble, not a soaking. Just watching it go down the sides, make sure it gets to the place where the roots actually are. Water the bit of the pot with no roots in, and don't put any in the bit that has got some. But you notice I'm even selecting the part of the pot that's going to get the water. There's not much growing going on this time of year. I can go back where I got it from. And then the other one over here that's in bloom is also quite a new plant. Another odont type. Again, this came from Burnham's. I'd love to get this one out of the pot. If I do, it's going to make hell of a mess, but we haven't had this one out of the pot yet. That's got a bundle of roots at the bottom of the pot and not much else. It's very slightly damp, and it's in some very fibrous coir stuff. It's very coarse, but it can have a dribble. As I said, it's not had much else since it got into this country, I doubt. And that one can go back where it came from, on that top shelf. These are on the top shelf so that I can see them from when I'm sitting on my chair working at the laptop. If they're on lower shelves, I'm not necessarily going to be able to see them. Right, so now we've got a couple more from down below. This is another division. It's got some roots. Those roots can have some feed. They're quite old tired roots. This is not gushing out with nice new fresh roots with growing tips, but it has got some, so it will accept some feed. Right. That one's going to go back on that lower shelf. As will the next one. Goodness knows what this is, there's not much of it. Oh, this is the calico gem. And the one early on was the other part of this, because again it was split into two plants in a pot. This has got some roots, it's got a new growth, so this can have a drop. Around the outside again. And that can go back where it came from, along with the others. Those are on the back of the shelf, and they need to go back prior to putting the Miltoniopsis away. So we'll get that done first. And then we've just got a few at the front. Right, put these back next. Right, now we've got room for the rest of that shelf. Now this is in an awful state, this one, which is a shame, but the back of the plant has rotted completely. Shriveled bulbs. That leaves one bulb with no leaves, or sorry, with one leaf, and the new growth. And the new growth is just starting to produce some roots. That's now probably at least 2 years away from blooming. That's been set back badly. Still not quite sure why. And then the other one that goes with that. Right, Misery Guts is awake. This one gets pegged onto the black pot to stop it tipping over. This is in a similar state but hasn't got quite so much going on at the back end. It still has two shriveled bulbs and quite a good strong new growth, which is producing a few roots, not many. So again, that can have a dribble, it's quite dry. That's all it's going to get. And as I say, what I do to hold plants and stop them tipping forward is use a peg and peg them to the back end of the black pot, which stands firm then. So that's that one, and then there's two more on that shelf. Ugh. And then the rest of this set is, well, let's just do these first. This is growing a lovely new growth even though there's next to no plant behind it. And this is Anna Clare, came from my friend at Wessex. That's a good strong new growth. That will recover this plant quite nicely because that was in quite a bad state. So we'll feed that nice new growth, but we won't soak it. But when something's growing like that, it's going to need, it's going to need some help. So that's that one. And then we've got this one, which is, this is Masai either white or pink. And the trouble is, Masai white and Masai pink both can produce almost white and quite bright pink blooms. This is growing some nice new roots. It's just starting to go with this nice new growth. 3 scale on that leaf. Peeled off really easily, so obviously not a colony, but just a couple. So as this is growing roots and the new growth is pushing on well, this can be watered. It's in a tiny pot, so it's going to dry out very quickly one way or the other. Well, that's the rest of those shelf. Right, what's going on? Stuff. My medication, I'll have to get on the phone again today because when I picked up my tablets yesterday, I only got 28 again. And because of what's just happened, I phoned up last week and they redid my prescription. Pharmacy was told, the pharmacy gave me what was ordered. It's not the pharmacy's fault. Well, it's very easy to blame them because they're the point of contact, aren't they? The others are phone calls. Now I can see, because of that, I can now see what's wrong in the system. And I phoned in again today to explain what's wrong, and I think they understood. But at that point, the lady doesn't know how to fix it. She will get a colleague in and they will work it out. Very, very beginning, when my prescriptions were first given, I got 56 tablets of the blood thinners. That's 28 days worth, yeah? Because they're 2 a day. And I got 56 of the heart tablets, which are 1 a day. So that was 2 months worth. Now, the system sets a reorder date based on 2 weeks prior to the tablets running out. The system generates that, and that's the problem. It's still doing it. Now somebody's gone in and reviewed my prescriptions and thought, well hang on, we're getting 56 2 a day and 56 1 a day. I'll change that to 28 so that they're in line. But they haven't changed the minimum reorder date. So when I order my heart tablets, I get a month's worth, but they set the reorder date 2 weeks prior to 2 months worth because it's still using that 56 value. So that's what's wrong. So I've found out what's wrong for them. Whether they can fix it or not, I don't know. But they've reordered another 28 now because I only got 28 and the reorder date has been set to the 10th of December, which is 8 weeks minus 2. To allow for the reorder period. That, you know, it's done what the system says it should do. It's just, it's wrong. That reorder date needs to be set back to 28 days, not 56. Yeah. So we've sorted out the problem for them. It's up to them to now fix it. And my car wasn't ready at the end of yesterday, so I haven't got my car back. That doesn't matter, I don't need it till the weekend. I said don't panic, don't worry about it, you know, you've got a couple more days yet. But what happened was they sent the wrong springs, so obviously they couldn't be fitted, so they haven't been able to put the car back together. So those should arrive early today, and he said because we sort of got a bit stuck on your car, we moved on to other things because we knew we'd have it again today. And he's still got to do the, sort out the door lock that's not. And also he's still got to do the rear number plate, so hopefully that'll be ready later today. So that's sort of what's going on. When you get hassles like this where you have to ring in, I'm sure sometimes when you're trying to explain really detailed things they glaze over. They think, oh, he probably doesn't know what he's talking about, we'll wait till he's finished and then we'll do what we want anyway. Possibly. But it is a nuisance when you've got something that, you know, quite dramatically affects your life and your health, and it's not right, and it needs to be sorted. So yeah, that's really looking bad, isn't it? It's got strong new growth though. I mean, it's not gone. Same with this one, it's got a nice strong new growth, but you know, they're nowhere near as good as they once were. It's another pair of plants that just didn't like their repot. You know, never really grown well since, but hopefully they're, you know, they're hopefully recoverable. They're not lost. Miltoniopsis back. See, these are in bloom, but they are actually on a lower shelf because I'm not sure they'll be happy on that top shelf. It's too bright for them. So I'll actually put them on lower shelves, but they're up one end. I can see them from my seat, so they're not, because it'd be a waste not to be able to view those, wouldn't it? So they're on that lower shelf where they don't get quite so much light. And these are gorgeous blooms, aren't they? And very, very fragrant, very fragrant. Right, so that's that shelf done. The next shelf I'm going to do is my Masdevallias. We haven't long looked at them. We actually looked at them individually and had a chat about them all. So the only things I haven't done, let's have a look, how long is this video? 20 minutes. I'll add them on the end, you don't have to watch, is the 6 Restrepias that I've got. We haven't looked at those for a long time, so I'll do those next, and then I won't film the Masdevallias because we've done those recently. So I did actually tidy these up last time I watered them and got rid of all the, well, most of the straggly bits. But we still get a dead leaf now and again, or one that I missed when I tidied them up, one or the other. Right, so this is one of my larger ones. It's got plenty of roots. It's heading towards dryness, and this is Sanguiniae. Came from Burnham's. Not a bad plant. It's got new growths coming. Blooms every now and again. It's got some blooms on it now at the moment. Well, it's got one. The other one round here is just going over, or just about to open. One of the two. Again, I don't soak these. Not this time of year. They must not dry out really. Restrepias shouldn't dry out. They should stay. They should have access to some moisture. They don't need to be soaking wet. Not this time of year. And these pots have all got moss in them, so I have to go careful not to absolutely soak them. So that's one. That's one of the larger ones. Next one is a nice lopsided plant. This one's got a couple of blooms open as well. This is, I think this is Capria. Yeah, this is Capria, which is a species, but this one's classed as a hybrid because the pollinator was unknown. So basically a seed pod was formed on Capria, but at Burnham's they weren't absolutely sure what pollinated it, so it might not be the pure species. So it has to be declared a hybrid because it's had an unknown pollinator. Again, lovely coloured blooms. Not a bad sized plant. It's got pretty good roots and it can have some feed. It hasn't had any feed for a long time. It might have had some water, but it hasn't had any feed for a long time. These don't need a lot. They really don't. Same with the Masdevallias, they don't need much at all. That's that one. And then this one is Falkenbergii, but it isn't. It's what did the lady say? She said most of the Falkenbergii at Burnham's have been misnamed, and they are in fact Bracti something or other. I haven't changed the label yet, but again, we've got some reasonable roots. Very slightly damp still from last time, but if I miss them out this time round, then they won't have had any feed, because the next watering run will be a flush. So even if they're a bit damp, I've still got to give them something, otherwise they won't have had any feed for a very long time. Right, and then the others are the smaller ones. They're on a different shelf at the moment, so that they don't block my view of the bird feeders. And this one is Howley Say, so this one came from the Eric Young Foundation. Not very good roots on this one. There are some, but they're not very good. And it is doing a few new growths, but it's not making a big effort, I must admit. So a more complex hybrid, this one, and also quite large blooms when I get some. I haven't had any for a while, but nonetheless it does bloom on and off, as these do. And then the last two are the small ones that are effectively Hannah's, but they were virtually, well, they were not far off dead when she handed them over. She couldn't look after them, she was in and out of hospital and stuff. We've now got some reasonable roots on these. They've still yet to bloom, these two. This one is Ephipium, and again, it has quite reasonable sized bloom if it ever gets there. And because these are in quite small pots, they do dry. So it's been growing quite well for the last year or two, so it's recovered. It's just a matter of getting it to blooming size now, along with its partner in crime, and this will be the last one for today. And this one is Antennifera, and it's the variety Frontino Giant. That's a hell of a size label for such a tiny little plant. Again, this is the other one from Hannah that it took a long time to recover these two. They just didn't want to grow and they didn't want to put out roots. They just sort of sat there for probably 2 years or more before they started to recover. And in the last couple of years they've actually recovered quite nicely. So that's where I'm going to stop filming. I've still got the Masdevallias to do. That'll only take a couple of minutes. And then hopefully I can go and get my car later on this afternoon. Get on the old bus. That's quite a novelty. I mean, I've got bus pass, I don't have to pay. But I do have to go careful in the morning, because if I'd taken my car in first thing and got it there for sort of quarter to 9, I'd have walked round the corner and got on the bus and had to pay. Because you can only use your bus pass after 9:30. So this time I took the car in for 9:15, and then by the time I'd faffed around and seen the guy and made sure we both agreed what was going to be done, and walked back round the corner, I got on the bus after 9:30, 20 to 10 it arrives. It's only a 5-10 minute bus ride, it's only up the road, so that's good. But this afternoon I'll be fine, because there's no restriction. It's only that first thing in the morning is to allow for the school kids and people going to work and stuff like that, and the bus not to be cluttered up with us old fogies that don't pay because we've got a bus pass. That's what it's for. I agree, I don't mind. If you've got to go somewhere that urgent, that early in the day, then, well, you pay. Or in my case, I would normally drive, but that's the whole point of getting the bus. I haven't got a car at the moment, but I will have soon. And then I'll have a nice shiny front end. I've got a feeling the guy said I'm going to have to go somewhere and get the tracking done, because the whole front end's been undone and done back up again. The tracking could be out, and he doesn't have the equipment to do that, because you're looking at laser lights and things like that to actually get that set up properly. So I might have to book that in somewhere else. I should book that in where I got the new tyres from, because they do have all that equipment. So anyway, that that will do for today, and I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.